Good morning, everyone. Good morning. As you heard, I'm Michael Berkowitz from the University of Miami. Thrilled to be here with an amazing panel. And we don't have a lot of time, so we want to jump right in. I had a developer, investor, mayor, and technologist joke. They all walk into a bar, but I'm going to skip that. So that we can get right to the panel. So this panel is about innovative infrastructure and thriving communities. And there's an old African proverb that I think we've all heard, which is, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I think many of us thought that was, we didn't know that that was from Burkina Faso.
That's from Ghana.
Nigeria.
We know it's not from Toronto. So in the context of going together, maybe if you can each talk a little bit about your work and what coalition building and inclusion means in terms of your work. I want to start large and get more focused. So maybe we'll start with Marvin, Margaret, Brian, and anchor it with Kofi.
When I was leading my city, I came in with, from a public health background. And public health, there's an understanding that you have to work with the wider determinants. Health outcomes for a population are not determined by health services alone. So when I came in to lead Bristol, the point I stressed with Bristol was that what people get from the city is not the result of local government alone. They sit at the intersection of decisions and non-decisions made by the whole range of organizations. So if we're serious about getting coherent around a destination that we want for Bristol, I have to work in a way that brings alignment between local government, private sector, unions, academia, voluntary community sector. And so that's what we did, and we set up a kind of cultural and a system of approach called Bristol One City, in which we brought all those organizations together around a smaller number of shared overarching aims for Bristol.
Great. Margaret?
First of all, so excited to be here. I wish Jessica Care-Moore could come back and we could just hear that literally 10 times in a row. So the work I do is in housing. So I come from the perspective that the most fundamental, important infrastructure in any city is where everyone wakes up and goes to sleep. Sort of without a safe, affordable, quality place to live, everything else we care about is kind of not even possible. And so I'm thinking about kind of coalition building in that space. It's one of the more difficult spaces to develop, make progress, rebuild, because the coalition needs to be everything from the federal government, tax policy, local zoning, unions, construction, et cetera, and how all of those decisions and capital, pension funds relate to like individuals in their homes, just trying to pay the rent, just trying to pay the mortgage. And so there's no simple, obvious solution. It really is about public-private partnerships, community engagement, taking everyone's voices into account in a real and genuine and authentic way. I think in many developments, especially kind of the larger the cities get, you have a lot of folks who sit in rooms at tables and make a lot of decisions for people they maybe have never met, that they don't understand, and don't take their perspectives into account. And so the work that we do, and we're working at scale, we're investing, billions of dollars and trying to preserve, improve, and produce hundreds of thousands of affordable housing units across the U.S. But there are no shortcuts. So our stakeholders are everything from tenant associations in housing to, our senators and House of Representatives who control many of the tax policies that we use. So it really is about a very, very, very broad coalition.
Great. Brian.
Thanks very much. First, I'd like to congratulate the City of Detroit, Global Citizen, and my fellow panelists. If the activity going on here doesn't get you fired up, I don't know what does. So congrats, Detroit. So at Cisco, we're really committed to powering an inclusive future for all. And so what that means is in working together with partnerships with government, nonprofits, community leaders, we're focused on ensuring that no one gets left behind. That's particularly important right now in this era of significant technology change. The advent of AI and what that means for the future of our economies is really, really critical. So in conjunction with organizations like the City of Detroit, the Detroit Public Library System, the Detroit Public Schools, we're enabling students through our Cisco Networking Academy, which has graduated 24 million students in 191 countries worldwide, to develop the skills to participate in the future economy and grow so that we can all grow faster together.
Great, thank you. Kofi, as a developer here in Detroit, talk a little bit about what inclusion and stakeholder development means to you.
Sure. Well, welcome to Detroit, everybody. Welcome to Hudson's Detroit. Look, at Bedrock, we have a very focused mission. Our mission is to lead the resurgence of these classic American cities of Cleveland and, of course, Detroit. And in order to accomplish this, obviously, you have to do it with a great deal of collaboration and public-private partnership. Partnerships with the civic organizations, partnerships with, obviously, the public sector, and many partnerships with community folks. We're very intentional in the way even we build and we attract businesses. We're very intentional about bringing retail and restaurant offerings that will fundamentally appeal to a wide variety of consumers, because we believe that will be important to our commercial tenants. We're very intentional about how we think about housing. Our housing must have a mix of both market rate and affordable housing, and we're absolutely beginning to think about how to bring market rate senior and affordable senior into the mix. I mean, it's all very critical, and we are also extremely intentional about what we do about the spaces and places between the buildings we build. It is absolutely essential for us that we don't just focus on the concrete and the bricks, etc. We think about those public spaces, we think about the space in between these buildings, and we create activations, and we are very intentional at creating the kinds of activities that will attract a wide variety of folks from all over the city, and frankly, visitors too from the other regions, to come into downtown, because we believe that a thriving urban center must function as an 18-hour city and be attractive to all.
Yeah. And one thing I've heard you talk about is how important heritage is to the work that you do and the historical context that it's in. Talk how Bedrock approaches that a little bit.
Sure. You know, we're very proud of the way we think about the cities we work in, and it's at the heart of what we do. The rich tradition and cultural heritage of these cities is at the heart of how we plan for them. I mean, you can see it in, some of us were at the Book Tower yesterday. That was an old historic building that we repurposed into the modern economy with a mix of uses to bring it to life. You see it at the Shinola Hotel, where we kept some of the historic features of the buildings and then turned it into, again, a hotel that's absolutely doing very well. And then we sometimes take a look at the legacy of a district, and with that, the Paradise Valley district used to be an amazing entertainment district, essentially owned primarily by African-American entrepreneurs. So we're currently working with African-Americans in that area to bring it back from the Woodward area, starting with our Cosm building, all the way to the Detroit Music Hall. And I think you can see a little clip of what we're planning and how we're thinking through that right now.
Great, thank you. Marvin, let me turn to you. One of the things I thought was super innovative about your mayoralty in Bristol was this sort of big ask, a big offer proposition that you teed up for civil society and the private sector in Bristol. Can you talk a little bit about that?
It's the other way around, actually. It's a big offer and a big ask.
Yeah.
All right, so you get elected and people turn up with stuff they want. And often they turn up with demands. And listen, I'm going to add another dynamic that Sadiq Khan, the Mayor of London, also faced. When you come from communities that have been historically excluded from politics, they turn up with 25 years of asks that they didn't make of your predecessors, and they want it next week. And if you don't deliver it next week, why do we bother electing you? Right. So I would just basically say this, that I can line up 1,057 people around City Hall, all who want something from me, right? very seldom do I get people turn up saying, hey, I got something to put into the mix. So I would challenge people and say, why don't you turn up and make a big offer? Not to me necessarily, but to the city. I'm going to end child hunger, right? I'm going to tackle the housing crisis. I'm going to make sure all kids from all backgrounds get access to work experience. But once you've made a big, clear offer to me, to Bristol, then make a big ask of me. The ask is, what do you need from me to unlock that offer to Bristol? And what I would stress is that if everyone turns up asking for stuff, the table's empty. If everyone turns up with a big offer to a place, the table's full. But we also know the very nature of the deal, and that's a loaded word at the moment, so I'm hesitant to use it. But we know what the deal is, right? That if I do these 2 or 3 things, what you're offering to Bristol can be unlocked, and I don't need to be involved in it. I'm unleashing your energy and your power. And so that became a culture in the city, and it's a language that's used often. And I go back, because it's good that you got it round the wrong way. People will then come and say, oh, Marvin, I got a big ask and a big offer. And so for 8 years of my time as mayor, we constantly stressed, no, you make your offer first, and then you make your ask. And now that's part of the rhythm of Bristol's conversation.
Yeah. And just to say, I mean, one of the offers was that you, extracted in some ways from the religious community, was that no one sleeps on the streets during the coldest months, right? I mean, that's a really powerful message, that everyone who needs a bed will have one in a church during the 4 coldest months.
Yeah, I'm conscious of my time.
Yeah.
So it started actually with faith communities when we first were kind of developing this. And it wasn't intentional. I didn't have it in my manifesto that we're going to develop offer and ask. It was kind of like a iterative process, and then we came to it. So I said to the church leaders, right, you've got buildings all over the city. Why don't you come to me and make an offer that no one who has the ability to accept help will spend a night on the street during the coldest months? So it was a very defined period of time so they wouldn't be exhausted. And they then came back and made that offer. And then they said, okay, Marvin, if we're going to do that, this is what we need from you. We want you to convene us. We want you to give us access to other support services that will come to our church buildings and be available to support us. And that was the deal. So it didn't solve the homelessness crisis, but there were a number of people who had really critical intervention. And if I just share, I went to one of those nights, and there was a guy who came to me and said, Marvin, he said, it's the first time I've laughed in about 9 months. Right.
So, Margaret, I've heard you talk about sustainable impact and how infrastructure investment drives racial and social equity. Talk about a little bit more about that, but maybe also focus on why that doesn't happen naturally. Why doesn't capital more often create triple bottom line wins and equitable outcomes?
That's a 7-hour topic, but
Yes.
I'm gonna.
That's a career. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm working on it for a few decades. So there are a lot of reasons, and I'll sort of just in the context of this panel talk about kind of community and economic development, especially in, as you call it, sort of neighborhoods that have been left behind, have 25 years of asks, and so there are a whole host of issues. There's lack of trust, misunderstanding. Even from the capital perspective, there's racism, there's classism, there's, if we have not invested in this community for this long, there must not be opportunity there. There must not be a way to drive return. There must be risks that I don't understand, and so if I have not been there, I'm not going, I can more easily make money in XYZ places. And so I think one of the things that we've, spent few decades at Goldman Sachs, have left more recently to launch my own fund. I think that what we've realized is that people are missing out on incredible opportunities. That if you think about very basic things like housing or grocery stores, people in underserved neighborhoods, they eat, they buy food, they want quality, fresh food, amenities, restaurants, retail, all of the things that Bedrock does like anyone else. And so it almost goes back to that first conversation around engagement, collaboration, the right set of stakeholders. And what I've seen at least in my time doing impact investing, bottom line investing, we don't just create incredible impacts for individuals and families and communities, we do incredibly well economically. It's a very basic idea around diversification. When you are, as a capital allocator or investor, excluding entire neighborhoods, communities, African American entrepreneurs, you are missing out on opportunities. Right. You are sort of excluding a whole kind of aspect of diversification that is positive and productive. And so I think, there's a lot of conversation, especially in the current environment, that's sort of anti-impact or anti-ESG. And I think we need to do a lot of reframing around this is about adding opportunities, inclusivity, bringing everyone into the tent. And so that's the way that we've approached the work.
And just a very quick follow-up to that, is there a trade-off between, to go back to the proverb, fast and far? Is it, do you need more patient capital in order to build the kind of stakeholder coalitions, or is that a fallacy?
I think there can be, to be quite honest. Like, it's so funny, Kofi and I backstage, we were talking about housing development in California,
right,
where it's a place where you have coalitions that are focused on incredibly important issues, environmentalism, the appropriate way to build something in a way that is sustainable, appropriate, et cetera. Now, you can study those issues for 10 years and never build a unit and have the deepest affordability housing crisis that this country's ever seen. And so it's like, but should we not take those issues into account? Should we slap up buildings made of any material we want and not think about zoning at all? No. So it really is about balance, but I think it would be naive and disingenuous to say that collaboration, thoughtfulness, sustainable intent as we develop and redevelopment, to say that those things are costless and don't take any time is naive, but it really is about balance, and I think we do not always get the balance correct.
Right. Brian, you talk about how Cisco is trying to ensure that everyone is connected and what that looks like. Talk a little bit more about that, and maybe also focus, if you can, on some of the barriers to doing that, because we know there's a huge digital divide. We know companies like Cisco have been working on that, but it continues to persist.
Yeah, I'll start again by sort of celebrating my fellow panelists again. If you don't get fired up by what these people are saying, I don't know. I just don't understand. Mr. Mayor, I want to give you a hug. Outstanding. Yeah, so I think, connectivity is at the heart of Cisco, right? We've been the underpinning of the internet for the past 40 years. But think about connectivity in the context of what we're doing today, right? What we're doing is we're coming together, connecting and creating ideas, right? Ideas that we're going to leave here with, right? And go back into our communities and thrive. And at Cisco, we believe that strong communities thrive, and we all win as a result of it, whether you're a citizen, a community leader, or a private sector company. So we firmly believe that. When you think about the challenges associated with it, I'll give you an example. The city of Toronto, over 50% of the population is born outside of Canada. There are 160,000 people coming into the country every year, into the city every year, right? So you think about that, the pressure on the infrastructure that exists in that city, okay? So you have organizations like the Toronto Public Library System, which is the second largest library system in the world, that recognized the reality of that situation and said, there's a need, okay? We need to deliver ESL courses, right? We need to deliver courses on how to build a proper resume, right? We need to deliver technology courses, how to participate in the AI economy, okay? So they've taken a progressive stand. But that need can't just be in a centralized location. It's got to be distributed across the city. The library system has 100 branches across the city. You think about that. If you're a new person in the country, if you have to travel, take public transit, I'm shaking a little bit here, I'm nervous.
You're just so excited.
I know, I get fired up, right? I get fired up. If you have to travel and take public transit across the city, how much time is that taking you? And how much is that costing you? Yeah. So we've partnered with that library system deliver on collaboration solutions so that you can walk to your local branch, get the content that you're looking for, and get home to see your kids when they get home from school. So you have to, as the mayor said, come with the big ideas around how we can help. We just can't sit back and ask. So that's where we see, obviously, technology underpinnings are essential to modern economies, whether it's public safety, utilities, transit, but that's where we see the real power and connectivity coming from.
So just in this example about the library system, were there obstacles that had to get overcome, and how did you do it navigating what is a public and a private partnership?
Yeah, it's hard, right? Mr. Mayor, you know that. We talked about that before. You have, public procurement systems. You have social media that instantly divulges information, right? So you really got to get out in front of that and come with the offer and be very communicative upfront of what the outcome we're looking to deliver on together is to rally stakeholder engagement across the system.
Yeah. I mean, maybe I'd throw that to our private sector panelists here, and of course, Mayor, if you want to weigh in as well. What does a government that is open to this kind of partnership look like? I mean, what are those ingredients in that environment that can lead to the kinds of outcomes that we're talking about here?
Well, let's talk about both sides of that, right? On the private side, certainly at Bedrock, we are so absolutely fortunate to have a chairman and founder whose first thought is, is this the right thing to do for the cities? Is it the right thing to do? And then he'll follow it up with, look, you should do things for more than profit. By all means, look to see how you can make money from this, how we can profit from this, but don't do it just because of profit. And when you begin with those two tenets, you now look for a government partner that will also sit there and recognize that the private person isn't trying to extract every last dollar out of the deal and is willing to provide and work with a community benefits agreement that will absolutely provide those kinds of a public rate of return, if you will, that it shows up in parks and activations, as I spoke of before, in affordable housing, and frankly, subsidies to other potential nonprofits. And when you come together with the private equity and then the public resources with that alignment of vision, I do truly believe you can achieve way more than if the private sector just underwrote to the classic 5 to 7 year return on investment.
Right.
Yeah, I'll be quick because I think that captures all of it. There's sort of like it's almost unfortunate, just the point about that the private sector, certainly investors, need to approach these partnerships like the public sector has something positive to add. I think in private equity, unfortunately, you have a lot of investors who view the public sector government as kind of the third rail, as sort of the policeman as opposed to a partner. So Vistria, where I am, in addition to housing, we invest in healthcare, education, and financial services, very purposefully highly regulated sectors where having those relationships with the public sector, being on the right side of policy doesn't just mitigate risk and keep us out of trouble, but creates real alpha, not just in terms of economics and returns like Kofi was speaking about, but also the impacts that we're trying to drive in communities. And I think on the flip side, government and the public sector can also look at private capital as a partner and a positive force. So I think if we just kind of see each other as productive partners in the work, that's the first step, and we don't always do that.
Yeah, and I wonder, we're sitting next to two really innovative financiers in some ways with social missions. I know we're almost out of time, but I kind of wonder whether or not that would be true at Goldman too, or is Goldman just looking for commercial returns? And
I mean, I spent close to 20 years at Goldman doing impact investing to the tune of 14 billion, hundreds of transactions around the country, including some of the most, I think, exciting mixed income new developments here in Detroit. So,
great.
Michael, I just, to put this in context, by the way, I think if we look at the nature of the world's challenges at the moment, climate change, political instability, the migration crisis, we have no option other than to solve this challenge of how the world's cities get access to the finance they need to deliver the infrastructure we need. 55% of the world now live in cities. It's going to be 2/3 by 2050. If we don't solve that, it's going to be a problem.
And with that, please join me in thanking our panel for this great discussion.